What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my solo role-playing and wargaming channel. I'm the Lonely Dungeoneer, and this is Session 4 of Let's Play Chainmail Solo. In the last session, we managed to finish generating the village of Nisme-les-Bains, which may serve as a starting point in the Westmoor campaign setting for our adventurers. And then we turned to a discussion of an order of peacekeeping, neutral-aligned knights. We determined that knighthood within this order, known as the Lonely Knights, would qualify a character for the power boost granted by Scarlet Heroes. And we decided to reflect the master and apprentice relationship found in the Star Wars franchise by creating two characters. One, a fully fledged Lonely Knight to serve as a mentor, and the second, an apprentice, our solo role-playing character. And I actually think that now might be a good time to go ahead and create our player character and their mentor, the Lonely Knight. I know that I mentioned in the last session that we would have a discussion around this universal binding force that is the source of the Lonely Knight's power and the basis for their religious order. We wanted to come up with a name. We wanted an inspiration for what aspect of the universe might provide a source of energy for this religious order. For instance, if maybe organic life forms, if life force was the source of power for this religion. And I asked you to get creative with it, to go ahead and comment your ideas on the video in the last session, but I am so excited about the campaign that I've already started recording Session 4 before Session 3 has even aired. So there obviously hasn't been enough time for that feedback to come in. So I think I'm going to move directly into character creation. We can pause to ask any questions that we might have about the Lonely Knights religious order as we go along. But for now, I think what I'll do is head over to Original Dungeons & Dragons and talk through the character creation process in each of Original D&D and in Scarlet Heroes. Okay, so in Original Dungeons & Dragons, you have the typical 6 ability scores that will be used for every edition of Dungeons & Dragons. We have Strength, Intelligence, Wisdom, Constitution, Dexterity, and Charisma. And these ability scores consist in a range from 3 to 18, where 9 to 12 about is average. Anything less than 9 is below average. Anything higher than 12 is above average. Okay, and there are 3 character classes. They are the Fighting Man, the Magic User, and the Cleric. And each one of these character classes has a specific ability score that's known as its prime requisite. So for instance, the Cleric's prime requisite is Wisdom. And what this affects is the amount of experience that your character is going to gain over the course of their adventuring career. So for instance, if we had a Cleric with a prime requisite Wisdom score of 9 to 12, that Cleric would receive no bonus or penalty to experience. But if they had a high Wisdom, they could gain up to a 10% bonus to all of the experience that they earn in the Cleric class, which is pretty cool. And if they have a low Wisdom score, then they actually could receive up to a 20% penalty to all experience earned towards the Cleric class. And this is a really interesting way to handle class requirements, because it means that you have a lot of flexibility in which character class that you can choose. So the default way to generate your ability scores is 3d6 down the line. You start with Strength and roll 3d6, and that's your Strength score. You move on to Intelligence, roll 3d6, and that is your Intelligence score. There's no swapping scores. There is an ability trade-off mechanic specifically for trying to reach a higher percentage of experience bonus, but that doesn't actually change your ability scores. So this is an inflexible manner of generating ability scores, but the interesting thing is that you can you can make a suboptimal choice and it's totally okay. Let's say that you rolled a 6 for your wisdom and you wanted to play as a cleric. You can totally do that, and the major effect is that you're going to have a 20% penalty to experience gain. So it's going to take you longer to level up, but you can still totally play as that character, and you can grind through the extra time it would take to level up. That character can go on to become successful. So it's a pretty cool system. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that, of course, your ability scores will affect any ability checks that you might make. So, as an example, let's say that we have a fighter with a strength of 18 or 17, right? A really strong fighter. Let's say that they want to try to roll a boulder off of a pinned character, right? As an example. Maybe you say if the boulder's not very big, their strength is 17, maybe you just rule that they can do that. You're like, yes, you're super strength, you can roll this boulder off the character. You don't even do any kind of check or roll. But let's say it's a really large boulder, and you're not quite sure if the character can do that or not. In those kind of questionable situations, it makes sense to perform something called an ability check, which is a roll or a test against that character's ability scores. And so in this case, a higher strength is going to make it more likely for you to succeed at moving the boulder. A lower strength is going to make it less likely for you to succeed at rolling the boulder away. So that is a consequence of rolling your ability scores straight 3d6 down the line. And there's also some bonuses and penalties. Let's see if we can touch on those, other than experience gained or experience not gained. A higher or lower charisma is going to affect the maximum number of hirelings that your character can have following them around. It also affects how loyal those characters are in dangerous situations. We've got a bonus or a penalty to hit dice based on your constitution score, and we have a chance of survival being affected by that as well, which is pretty interesting. Dexterity, a high or low dexterity will either give you a bonus or a penalty to ranged missile attacks, right? So fighting with a bow, hurling a torch at a monster, anything like that, you're going to get a bonus or penalty to dexterity if you have a high or low score. We also have languages. If you have an intelligence that is higher than 10, then your character will gain access to more languages to speak. So for instance, if your intelligence was 11, you would get all of the default languages plus one more, which is pretty cool. And as far as I'm aware, this is the extent of your ability score's effect on a game of original Dungeons & Dragons. Now that is, of course, making the assumption that you're playing 3 LBB or 3 Little Brown books, original D&D, which consists only of the first 3 volumes, Myth and Magic, Monsters and Treasure, and the Wilderness and Underworld adventures. As soon as you get into any of the supplements like Greyhawk or Blackmoor, Eldritch Wizardry, I think the last one is Gods, Demigods, and Heroes. As soon as you start adding these books to your campaign, then you get into having even more class options, more impact that ability scores have on the game. And it does get very interesting, but we're going to keep it simple in this campaign and just roll with the 3 Little Brown books. Okay, so now let's contrast this with Scarlet Heroes. In Scarlet Heroes, you still have ability scores ranging from 3 to 18, which keeps Scarlet Heroes compatible with the vast majority of OSR or old school role-playing games. But seeing as you're only going to play as one player character rather than as a party, Scarlet Heroes gives the character creation process a number of benefits, a number of boosts that will basically ensure that your solo player character is more powerful than a standard player character. And again, all of these changes are aimed at ensuring that your one solo character is roughly the same power as 4 ordinary player characters. Okay, and this is how this translates into ability scores. They're called attributes in Scarlet Heroes, but instead of rolling 3d6 down the line, you actually roll 4d6, dropping the lowest die. to get each of your 6 scores, ability scores. And after you do that, you can actually swap your scores around. So if you really want to play as a fighting man, but your highest attribute was in wisdom, you can swap those scores around to get the character that you want, which is a little more flexible, and it's probably a good idea for a character in a solo campaign. You're not really trying to fit in with a group in this case. You're not trying to be balanced with other members of a party. You really are the star of the show. So this kind of makes sense to me. We also have this rule that if none of your ability scores roll at 16 or higher, then you can set one score of your choosing to 16. And that's also pretty cool. The rationale being that your character is a hero, and so they are certainly remarkably good at something. And in our campaign setting, this is going to translate into the Lonely Knights. So we're basically making the claim that our Lonely Knights are a cut above the rest. Now, given that, I don't want to give our player character all of this extra power immediately and for free, at least in this campaign, and it's specifically because of the Master and Apprentice trope that I'm hoping to follow. So I think our strategy is going to be to create the mentor, the Lonely Knight that is our mentor, as a Scarlet Hero with all of the rewards that come with that. And then for our player character, while we are still an apprentice and seeking the title of Lonely Knight, while we're still trying to become a fully fledged Knight of the Order, we're going to roll our character up as a normal original Dungeons & Dragons character, maybe with a caveat. So I think the plan is going to be to roll 3d6 for our player character, which is in line with original D&D, but maybe we'll allow the Scarlet Heroes swapping of ability scores now, and the reason why I think that makes the most sense is because I don't think it would make sense to rearrange ability scores later after we become assuming that we become a Lonely Knight. I don't think it would make sense to suddenly change around the raw characteristics of your player. So I think my plan is going to be to roll 3d6 for each ability score, but to also roll the fourth one, see what it is, and if and when our player character earns the title of Lonely Knight, then we'll add in whatever buff that they receive from the fourth die to represent their increase or reward, their step up from being a typical original D&D character into being a Scarlet Hero, which will be really cool. And in rolling all 4 dice up front, we're going to see what our final ability scores might be, so we can swap ability scores intelligently to get the kind of character that we're going for, and also we can see if there's any score that totals 16 or not, and we can choose an ability score to raise to 16. I think this is going to work out pretty well. So essentially, to summarize, we're going to have a mentor who's already going to be a Scarlet Hero, and then we're going to have our solo player character, and they are going to be almost a typical original D&D character with some very small changes until our character, hopefully eventually, earns the title of Lonely Knight, at which point we'll upgrade them to being a Scarlet Hero and continue on with our campaign, playing largely solo rather than with other Scarlet Heroes with our mentor. And this is really cool because it gives an in-universe, in-setting justification for our player characters to be more powerful than is typical. And it might even be interesting if we were to come across some type of enemy someday that perhaps had a similar power level. I'm thinking like Sith in Star Wars. Maybe we have some kind of opposing force someday that also have the benefits of being a Scarlet Hero. Now that could be pretty wild. But for now, I guess what we'll do is we'll go ahead and start rolling for our ability scores. I actually found this awesome character sheet, form fillable. I'm going to shout out this user on Reddit, SFJT. Not sure what that is an acronym for, but this character posted a year ago. This human, posted a year ago in the Reddit, the OSR Reddit space, this form-fillable character sheet for original D&D and Chainmail. And it's honestly a pretty sick character sheet for Chainmail because it seems to elegantly handle all 3 combat systems provided by Chainmail. And I know, we'll get into it, if you're not familiar already, Chainmail provides 3 different ways to engage in combat. And you employ each of these combat systems in different situations. But it's honestly, it's really cool and fun. You'll see. It's going to be a great time. But this character sheet seems to adeptly handle the presence of all of these different combat systems on one sheet. So we're going to be making use of this, and I am pretty excited for it. Why don't we get into rolling for ability scores next? All right, I've got my notes ready to go. We're going to kick things off with the Mentor, who is a Scarlet Hero. So we're going to be rolling 4d6. We're going to have the ability to drop 1 die for each ability score, and the ability to swap scores, and also to raise at least 1 score to 16 if we don't have any scores already at 16. Okay, this is for our Mentor, and we're not going to role play as the Mentor. I'm going to try to not spend the extra mental energy on truly role playing as the Mentor. We're going to try to treat the Apprentice as our solo role playing character primarily. Okay, but I still want to roll stats for this character because I think that they're going to be a critical NPC, at least early on in our campaign. So here we go. The first roll we get, 6, 2, 1, 1. So we'll toss out a 1. 6, 2, and 1 is a 9. So a strength of 9. We'll probably need to swap that out. We'll see how it goes. Okay, intelligence, 46 we get. 6, 5, 3, 2. Okay, 6, 5, and 3. 6 and 3 is a 9, plus 5 is 14. That's pretty good. 14 intelligence. Okay, another 46. We get 6, 4, 4. That is 14, dropping the 3. 14 wisdom. Roll again. We get 6, 4, 3. That is 13 constitution. Okay. One more time. 6, 3, 3, 3. Okay. That's a 12 dexterity. And finally, 46 we get. 5, 3, 1. Drop a 1. That is 9. Okay. So we now have a 9, 14, 14, 13, 12, 9 for our Mentor. And we can choose 1 score to raise to 16. We can also choose to swap scores. We can move our scores around. I think, so if this is an order of fighting men, right, where these characters are not really truly clerics. So if a Lonely Knight begins their career as a fighting man, we need to have a high strength score. So I think we're going to choose, because we didn't roll any 16s, I'm going to choose strength. This is going to be a huge jump. We're going to increase this character's strength to 16. All right, and that's within the rules or laws of Scarlet Heroes. And now we have the ability to swap these scores around. So I think it makes sense for this character to have a high wisdom, right? And what I want to know is what they have a low score in. Does it make sense for them to have a low charisma? I'm thinking if these are guardians and peacekeepers, maybe charisma is an important attribute. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. So I think I might swap some other score for this character's charisma. Maybe our Apprentice character can learn something from their Mentor with regards to reducing tension during a conflict. It seems pretty important. Wisdom looks like it needs to be high. I'm thinking maybe dexterity and charisma can swap. Maybe this character is not The most sure-footed. That actually, oh man. Interesting. Well, okay, so I was thinking that Scarlet Heroes probably are very dexterous. Not Scarlet Heroes, Lonely Knights in this campaign setting. But that is represented, it's expressed by the Scarlet Heroes damage modifiers. And so it's almost like it's not your innate ability, it's a divine blessing granted to you. That's pretty cool. That's pretty interesting. Okay, I like this change, and I like that this character doesn't have the highest dexterity. I like that they're intelligent. Yeah, I think this works. So we're gonna make this will be our mentor character. They're gonna be a fighting man, and we're not going to keep track of their XP because we're not going to be following their progress and leveling them up. This is a level 1 fighting man. XP is 0. We're not really going to track it. Hit point track. Interesting. Okay. I guess so. The next thing to do would be to come up with a name for our mentor, and we can randomly generate this. We can go over to the Mythic Game Master Emulator, 2nd edition. We can head over to the names table and randomly generate a name for this mentor NPC Lonely Knight character. Okay. Rolling for the first word, we get 76, the first sound rather, is SH, so sh. Next we get 83, SH and tha, shatha, shatha, shatha? Yeah, okay, that actually works for me. Let's head over to their character sheet. This is Shatha, and Shatha's alignment is going to be neutral. I guess we can just type it in here. Awesome, let's go to their title. If we head over to Original Dungeons and Dragons, we should find these leveling charts that'll show you for each of the 3 character classes. It'll tell you a number of things about them. One of these pages, yeah, this has the amount of experience points required to level up. And a fighting man begins their career with the title of veteran, and they need 2,000 XP to increase to the rank of warrior. Okay. Yeah, so Shatha will have a title of veteran, and if we jump back over to original D&D, we have a number of hit dice. And this is kind of interesting. So in original D&D, your hit points are determined by hit dice, and you have a starting number of dice, and what you do is you roll. Each hit die is a d6, so you roll however many d6 that you have, and that is your HP. Magic users and clerics begin the game with 1 hit die, so their maximum health is 6, while the fighting man gets 1 plus 1, so the maximum hit die for the fighting man is, the maximum starting HP is actually 7. If you rolled a 6 plus 1, that would be a 7. So this is going to be pretty scary. Starting the game, even with 1 plus 1 hit die, is not optimal. Now, Scarlet Heroes might have a different way of handling your health. Let's actually see if there is. And it looks like, yes, there is. In Scarlet Heroes, you simply assign a starting number of hit points based on the class that you choose. And it looks like these numbers are based on, in the Greyhawk supplement, they change the size of the hit die for each class. So it looks like you're getting the full starting hit die at the first level in Scarlet Heroes. I think for our purposes, would it make sense to just give our character the maximum number of hit points to start the campaign with? I think maybe we'll make them earn that too. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Maybe we'll have our character start the game with a true a true hit die roll for their starting hit points. And then if they successfully earn the title of Lonely Knight, then at least for their very first hit die, we'll boost that up to the full 6 HP. That sounds like a fun way to handle this in narrative. But for Shatha, given that he is already I say he, we should actually ask that, but given that they are already a Lonely Knight, they should receive their full first hit die. So the hit die is 1+1. On the hit point track, we're going to say that Shatha's hit points are 7 out of 7. This is a full hit die +1 for being a fighting man, which makes sense. Now I don't want to work with equipment. I don't want to really track a lot of treasure and whatnot for Shatha because I want to minimize the bookkeeping that I need to do. I really only want to play as one player character. But let's now determine if Shatha is a man or a woman. We'll make a fate check, right? And I'll ask the question, is Shatha a woman? We'll give it odds of 50-50. And 8 and 2, no. Shatha is, in fact, a man. That is our mentor. Okay, so next, why don't we head over to our real true player characters character sheet and start rolling for ability scores. And I am so very stoked for this. Okay, I've got my notes off to the side because we're going to start by rolling 3d6. Then I'm going to note the 4th die off to the side so that if and when we reach the rank of Lonely Knight, we can add that die to the score. Okay, so first off, we have for our strength, a 3d6 straight roll of, a 4. Oh, that's not good at all. Okay, right. Now I'll roll the 4th and we get a 4. So that's going to be an improvement to 1 score. Okay, so we have 4 and a 4. And actually, I really need to keep track of what each of the dice were. So really, this is a 1, 1, 2, 4. Okay, now we'll roll the next 3d6, and we get 3, 4, 5. This is not looking so hot at all for this character. For the Apprentice, rolling our 4th die, we get a 1. How awful is that? Okay, so we get, it's 3, 1, 1, 1. That is not good at all. Okay, so next up, 3d6, we get, whoa, that is 11, 12, 13, 14 for our wisdom score. That's incredible. That is a really good roll. And then for the 4th die, we get a 1. So this is a 6, 5, 3, 1. I'll call it, just to keep track for later. Next, 3d6 down the line, we get 5, 5, and 3 is 13. Again, these later scores, not so bad. We've got a couple really good scores, a couple really bad scores. Okay, and then the next die is a 6. So I'll say 5, 5, 3, 6. For our Constitution. That is incredible. That means that we have at least 1 score that's going to be very high. Okay, Dexterity now. 3d6, we get 6, 6, 5. That is 17. Oh my gosh. That is incredible. If we rolled a 6 with the next die, then we'd have a perfect score somewhere. That is nuts. Let's go ahead and roll this die. And we get, it was almost a 6. Okay, it's a 5. So we have 6, 6, 5, 5. Okay, nice, nice. And then finally for Charisma, 3d6, we're going to get 553, that's a 13. And for our fourth die, we're going to get a 3. So 5533. Okay. Now, so this is how it all shook out. If we were playing with just a typical original D&D character, we'd have a 4 strength, 5 intelligence, 14 wisdom, 13 constitution, 17 dexterity, and 13 charisma, which is honestly a super interesting character. But this would be abysmal for a fighting man. This is a very, very weak individual. Now, if we look at the fourth die for each of these scores, let's just think about the trade-off we'd be making. Our 4 is going to turn into a 7. We're going to drop a 1, pick up a 4. We're going to get a +3 to that score. Our intelligence, this score is not going to change. We're stuck with a 5 somewhere. So we should probably just make a decision now. Where do we want to have the 5 for this character? Do we want it to be their... Man, I don't really want it to be their intelligence. What are we willing to give up with this character? Dexterity... I mean, they're all important. So we are, again, typically in original D&D, you would not be able to swap your scores around. But for our purposes right now, for using Scarlet Heroes and in creating a character that has a path towards becoming a Scarlet Hero, we're going to go ahead and swap our ability scores around now because it wouldn't make much sense later to suddenly swap your scores around. Although we will suddenly grow in certain areas. I'm going to tie that in narratively to the attainment of the Lonely Knight title within this religious order, which I think is going to be pretty cool. But we need to make a decision about what score should be the worst. We could have our constitution be low to actually keep us always at a risk of death. If we really are to die, we could suffer from our hit points. That's actually an interesting choice. Because we're playing as a Scarlet Hero with extra benefits, ooh, that might make the game feel more dangerous. Okay, I kind of like that. Let's put the 13 here and the 5 here. And then on my notes, I will swap those. So what was our intelligence score is now our constitution score and vice versa. Okay. That makes sense. Our 4 is going to become a 7. Our wisdom, our 14, which is awesome, is not going to improve. So that's just what it is. We've already discussed constitution, which is not going to change. Our intelligence, actually, that we just swapped away from. This 13 in intelligence, this is actually going to improve. We're going to drop a 3 for a 6, so we're going to gain 3 points. So this 13 is actually going to become a 16. Okay, so our 4 is going to become a 7. Our 13 is going to become a 16. So I'm going to actually write that down here. 4 to 7, and 13 becomes a 16 with our intelligence score. Okay. Wisdom's not going to change. Constitution is not going to change. Our dexterity of 17 is not going to change. We would drop a 5 for a 5. And our charisma is not going to change. We'd drop a 3 for a 3. Okay, so the only things that are going to change as of right now are that 4 will become a 7 and that 13 will become a 16. I wonder if I have enough room in the character sheet to indicate that. So I could do like 4 to 7. Okay. And then I could do 13 to 16. Now we're definitely not going to get the opportunity to increase an ability score to 16 because we already are going to have 2. This is honestly pretty cool. So now that we have all this information, we just need to think about what do we want our final character to be like? What should their highest ability scores be? And I'm thinking that, to me, strength should probably be one of the highest, if not the highest score. So I think what I'll do is place our 13 to 16 in the strength column, and we'll take our, 13 to 16, and we'll place our 4 to 7 here for now. I want my intelligence to be higher than this. Yeah, I'd like for intelligence to be higher. So we'll move, well, what will we move there? Maybe we'll move, I think the 14. Yeah, let's swap like this. We'll put the 14 in intelligence. That is cool. And then wisdom I'd honestly like to be pretty good as well. Yeah, maybe we'll do we do 17 in wisdom or in charisma? We've got this 17. I think either we want to be able to talk our way out of situations or we want to be able to perceive what's happening around us really well. Yeah, I'm thinking that maybe our charisma becomes 17. Okay, we'll swap here. Constitution's 9. We're weak. We're weak sauce. That's okay. We could put this 13 from dexterity into wisdom, and we could do 4 to 7 dexterity. Okay, let's take inventory. What is our character like right now? We're strong. We're going to get a 5% bonus to Fighting Man XP now, but then we'll get a 10% bonus later. If we multi-classed into being a magic user, we would get an XP bonus. If we multi-classed into being a cleric, we would get an XP bonus. We're going to be smart, above average smart anyway. We're going to have a good chance at perceiving our environment. We're going to be weak as far as constitution goes. We'll be prone to disease. We'll be prone to actually dying if we ever reach a death state. So that'll be scary. We'll actually get a penalty to hit dice. Yeah, we're going to get a penalty to hit dice. So that'll be interesting, and it'll be kind of a balance to the Scarlet Hero's power that we receive. And are we going to receive a penalty to our missile firing? Let's check that out. If I scroll up here, we should see the pros and cons of different ability scores. Under 9, you fire any missile at -1. Yeah, so we're not going to be great at missile attacks either. That is before or after the upgrade. But we're going to be able to talk our way out of most situations. And I think in an old school game, that might honestly be the play here. Ooh, and now I'm actually having a kind of a last minute change of heart. I wonder if it might not be more interesting if we're weak in one of the prime requisite areas. I'm thinking maybe having a higher dexterity would make sense. If we're going to have a pretty strong strength, a pretty high strength, it almost makes sense for our character to have a good dexterity score representing their balance, their finesse. Yeah, I'm thinking maybe I might swap. Yeah, let's go ahead and do this. Last minute adjustment. We're going to swap our dexterity and our wisdom. And it's going to be a little tougher for our character to notice things, to perceive things, but I think kind of like our constitution being low is going to cause problems in a meaningful way with our hit dice and with our survival odds. Our low wisdom is also going to give us challenges. We're going to run into traps, and it kind of makes sense to play into the trope of high intelligence, low common sense. I think that makes a lot of sense here. Okay, being an apprentice lonely knight, we're going to take on the fighting man class. That's going to give us a title of veteran. And our alignment is going to be neutral. And again, this is not in the sense of we just don't care about good or evil. This is not an alignment with good or an alignment with evil. When we're choosing neutral, this is in between the forces of law and chaos, because our character is going to represent balance in this campaign setting. All right, our XP is going to be at 0, and our hit dice as a fighting man, we're going to start off with 1 + 1 hit dice. Okay. And now the twist. I think I'm going to create my character at level 0, level -1. What in the world do I mean there? I think what I want to do is to have this player character earn enough XP that would usually reach the 2nd level, but instead of reaching the 2nd level, I want them to reach level 1 as a Scarlet Hero. So I think I might call this is not in the original D&D book, this is not in Scarlet Heroes, this is kind of something I'm making up on the fly. But I'm going to call my character level 0, and the mechanic I'm going to use is leveling up. Instead of taking us from 1 to 2, it's going to take us from 0 to 1. And as soon as we hit level 1, we're going to have another 2,000 XP gulf to cross to reach level 2. So we'll be playing the game normally as far as levels are concerned, but at level 1, we will have the right to become a Lonely Knight. And we might need to do something in-game narratively for that to actually happen, but yeah, I think that's how I want to play this, which feels pretty cool. We're going to be starting from the bottom and earning our increased power level. And I'm honestly pretty excited about this character concept and campaign concept. I think this is going to be pretty cool, playing as a Lonely Knight in Westmoor. It's going to be fun. The next thing that we need is to roll for our treasure. We're going to start the campaign with 3d6 gold pieces worth of equipment. If I roll, we get a 6 and a 5 is an 11, with a 2 is a 13. So we have 130 gold pieces to spend on equipment. Okay, very cool. Let's see, I should probably slide our character sheet over to make this a little easier. Okay. We're going to jump over to Min and Magic, where we have a listing of the gear that we can purchase and bring with us. And purchasing equipment is one of the most kind of time-intensive aspects of playing original D&D, especially in a group. But with just one player character, this is much easier. And this is actually why I really like Scarlet Heroes. I really don't mind role-playing a group of adventurers, or rather, I don't mind playing as a group of adventurers, role-playing myself being one character, mechanically in combat, and in most situations determining their behavior and stuff. I really don't mind that. The thing that I don't enjoy doing is tracking equipment, torches, rations for a whole group. I'd like to do that for like just one character, my character, maybe to assume that other people plan accordingly, that I'm the one that is fallible, unless, some random event causes me to learn that they haven't prepared accordingly. So whatever the case, this is a big part of why I really love playing with Scarlet Heroes in OSR type role-playing games, so that we can just go through this one time, which it is quite fun to do once. It's just not super fun for me personally to do this for 8 different player characters in a massive original D&D party, right? Okay, so the first thing is armor, and we need to think about, as we play the game, we need to keep the chainmail combat system in mind as we're making these decisions. So we have 3 different combat systems. We have man-to-man, we have mass combat, and we have fantasy combat. Now, to even compete on the fantasy combat table, we need to achieve a certain level. And so if I jump down, let's see, to this table, you'll see that every character in original D&D has something called a fighting capability, and this is a value that is used in chainmail. So you can play original D&D with their alternative combat system that's provided, and that combat system would go on to become the default combat system across D&D versions. And it's really fun, right? It's cool. If you've ever played D&D and played with the D20 combat system, you'll know what I'm talking about. It is a great time. Chainmail has something different and interesting that includes this fighting capability value. You'll notice that once you hit the hero level, and actually a swordsman, once you reach the level swordsman, that's level 3, you fight either as 3 men or as hero -1, right? And then you start to fight as hero +1 or 5 men. As soon as you reach this stat of hero -1, you finally have some value that can compete on the fantasy combat table. So there's a fantasy combat table in Chainmail. Let's see, I can jump down to that if I jump to the tables at the end. Yeah, and these are sideways. I might have to find a way to rotate this for you. But yeah, we have this fantasy combat table. You have to have some kind of hero, or is it wizard? Let's check. If I go to magic users, hero -1, and then wizard. You have to have at least a hero statistic to be able to fight on the fantasy combat table. So if we come across a creature that is a fantastic creature that is somewhere on this table, then we are not even going to be able to harm them at all. We just can't even engage in combat against them. We can only defend against fantastic creatures, and they are brutal. So let's hope that we don't actually engage in combat with any of these kinds of creatures. So at least for now, until we hit a higher level, that's going to narrow down the combat systems to 2. We have man-to-man and mass combat. And there is another book that I like to reference when playing Chainmail, in bridging the gap between original D&D and Chainmail to make a single, pretty cohesive system. And that book is The Complete Chainmail Combat System, which is notes compiled from different individuals by this Alderaan individual, compiled and edited. And its subtitle is Using Chainmail to Resolve od&d Combats. Right? And we see the basic system is that from Chainmail, with one figure representing one man or creature. Melee scores equaling a drive back or a kill equal only to a hit. So all throughout the books, we have these hints and notes from across the original D&D books and the book Chainmail that altogether provides a pretty cohesive system. And the recommendation from this book is to treat the majority of your combats as mass combats, using the mass combat system. And this isn't because you're actually performing mass combat. It's because the mass combat rules are quick and dirty. They're fast. You can get through combats quickly with the mass combat system. And so most of the time, we'll be playing under the mass combat rules. So that set of combat rules will be the most important. Now, we also have the man-to-man combat system. When would that come into play? And the example given in this book is that you enter a room with a group of goblins, and maybe you have, maybe it's one player character versus a group of goblins, and this is going to be a big group combat with a lot of minion-type enemies, right? It's not one enemy, it's a group of them. And so you use mass combat to get through the combat more quickly. But then, let's say the goblin sergeant comes through the door after you've killed all of the other goblins, and now you have this one more powerful and interesting, unique creature to fight, to do battle with. Well, in this case, you might switch to the man-to-man combat system, which is a more cinematic combat system, and it really is designed for one-on-one combat. It's almost like a duel. So the way that I like to run this is pretty much any random, I'm not going to say unskilled combat, but any kind of clash, any kind of group combat where it's not just like one person's skill versus the other that are somewhat equal. Most of those scenarios we're going to play under mass combat rules. And then if we come across a moment where two skilled individuals, maybe of equal-ish power, doesn't necessarily have to be of equal-ish power level, but I think usually you know it when you see it, when you have some cinematic one-on-one combat taking place, or even a group of one-on-one combats. Let's say it was 2v2 with maybe named or interesting opponents, and it broke down into two man-to-man combats. Situations like that will slow combat down, go into man-to-man mode, make it more cinematic, and then our weapons and armor are going to matter in a completely different way. So it's really cool and interesting because your one set of gear can be used in different ways in different situations. Okay, and finally, anytime that we come across a fantastic creature, combat is going to really become more epic and slow-paced. It's going to be wild. It's going to be crazy. But for the beginning of the game, we won't even have the ability to scratch any of these creatures, so we don't need to worry about that for now. But what this means for combat for us is that when picking gear, we want to optimize for the mass combat system first, and then probably the man-to-man combat system second. And if I head over to, let's see, complete chainmail, you'll find the idea of troop types. Okay, so depending on arms and situations is how chainmail puts it. Every combatant is assigned a troop type. And so if you're unmounted, this is light foot, heavy foot, and armored foot. And you attack as one type and you defend as another. And complete chainmail has this handy guide for determining what your troop type should probably be based on your arms and armor. There's also 3 cavalry-based troop types. Let's see, is it light horse, medium horse, and heavy horse, I believe. And what's interesting is that some crazy creatures like a dragon, if you can't fight a dragon on the fantasy combat table, then a dragon fights as 4 heavy horse, which is just intense, insane. So every combatant in the game, in the mass combat system, is assigned some troop type. And if you look at chainmail, we have this combat table where you look up a troop type. Like in this case, let's say that my offensive capability was heavy foot, and if I was attacking an enemy that's light foot, then for every man that I fight as, I would roll 1 die and a 5 or 6 kills. And in chainmail, that would actually be kills. When we're playing original D&D, instead of a kill, we score a hit. So we'll roll for damage against that opponent. A heavy foot versus a heavy foot is pretty equal. So you roll 1 die per man and only a 6 kills or hits. And as you step up, you can see if a heavy foot is attacking someone that's an armored foot, they only get 1 die per 2 men, and a 6 would hit. So the system is quite interesting, but it requires you to have the ability to quickly understand what troop type any enemy combatant is fighting as, right? But as long as you have that information at the ready, combat becomes really, really easy. You roll a total number of dice, 6-sided dice, and you see how many 6s usually that you get. Sometimes it's a 5 and a 6 or a 4 through 6 to score a hit. And this becomes really, really quick. And something that I really love about complete chainmail, the thing that makes me always go back to it, is near the bottom of the book. Let's see, do we have hyperlinks? No. I'll scroll down. We actually have these listings we have these 2 appendices that list enemies and their fighting capabilities, what they attack and defend as. So for example, a goblin would attack as a heavy foot troop type and defend as a light foot troop type. So this is pretty cool. There's actually 2. There's a second appendix with even more enemies. It looks like these are compilations that individuals created. We have another appendix for the fantasy combat table, so you can fight even more creatures using that table. So yeah, this book is really awesome. It's a cool reference, and it's really helped me to understand how you might combine Chainmail and original D&D to create a single game. It's really cool. And so this is the primary reference that I'll be looking to when adjudicating combats in this campaign. Now, in optimizing our player character for combat, what I would like to do is to strike a balance between protection and speed. Sometimes speed is more important for mechanics such as evasion or even just running away, not being pursued by a more dangerous opponent. Speed is important, but being able to protect yourself, defend yourself, especially in this first 0th level where our character is not a Scarlet Hero yet, defense is going to be pretty important. So what I'm going to do is aim for this middle ground to fight as a heavy foot. So this says leather and shield through chainmail and shield are going to give us the heavy foot rating. Now we are playing chainmail, so I find it highly appropriate to purchase chainmail as her armor. It's also going to work out better than leather when we're fighting on the man-to-man combat table. So let me drop down. I believe it's 30 gold pieces for chainmail. Yeah, we're going to spend, let's see, where is my character sheet? Is it over here? Yeah, we're going to spend 30 of our gold coins, so this is going to drop down to 100. And this is going to buy us chainmail. Do I put this in armaments? I think. Yeah, I think that makes sense. So we're going to have chainmail. And if we look at original D&D, this is going to give us a certain amount of encumbrance. So this is the amount of weight that can be carried. You can see here that if your load in gold pieces is less than 750 gold pieces worth of weight, then you can move 12 inches per turn, per movement, right? Which we'll get into all of these mechanics as we go along. But so this is light foot movement. So if we can keep our weight under 750, then we'll be able to move 12 inches. And this is really fast, but if we want to have a good amount of arms and armor, then this is probably not going to happen. What I'm going to aim for is medium kind of armor, right? We're going to try to fight and defend as a heavy foot troop type, but we're going to try to stay under 1,000 gold pieces to keep us at the 9-inch mark, the 9-inch movement rate. Okay, if you break the 1,000 gold piece cap, then your movement drops to 6 inches, and then beyond 1,500 gold pieces, I should say, I believe your weight, your movement drops in half. Yeah, the maximum load per person at half normal movement is 3,000. Quite interesting. Okay, so our chain mail is going to cost 500 gold pieces worth of weight. So we can go ahead and mark our encumbrance as 500. Okay, now I want a weapon. So we want a weapon off of this list, the heavy foot list. Battle axe, bolt. Interesting, bolt. I'm not sure what that is. Flail, mace, morningstar, spear thrust, spear while you're thrusting, broadsword, warhammer. And these weapons are not taken from original D&D. Yeah, I think there are some weapons here like the bolt. Maybe this is this supposed to be a crossbow bolt? I don't think so. Like a broadsword is not a weapon in original D&D, so we will pick a weapon from OD&D and compare it to this table. I kind of like the idea of a flail or a sword. A broadsword. Okay, so we have short sword, broadsword, two-handed sword. Broadsword here might just be a sword. Okay, so maybe we will purchase just a normal sword. This will be 10 gold pieces. Yeah, that'll be kind of cool. I like the idea of like maybe a sword and a shield. I think we needed to have, let's go back to chainmail complete. I think we needed to have chainmail and shield to be heavy foot. It's a leather and shield through chainmail and shield. Yeah, we can purchase a shield and a sword. Okay, we'll do that. That's going to be 10 gold pieces and 10 gold pieces, so that's 20 total. We're going to drop our treasure down to 80 gold pieces. We're going to purchase a sword and shield. I might place the shield. Let's do this. Let's say sword, shield, chainmail. Let's have it in this kind of order with like weapon and then armaments. Ooh, so this is the encumbrance specifically of your armaments. That is honestly pretty nice. Okay, so here we've got 500 for the chainmail. Okay, and then our sword and shield. A sword is 50. A shield is 150. So that's going to be 200 encumbrance. So altogether we have 700 encumbrance coming directly from our armaments. Do we want a helmet? Ooh, I don't know. Do we want to load up like that? How much does the helmet weigh? Let's see. A helmet would weigh 50. So that's not so bad. And a helmet would cost 10 gold pieces. So maybe that's a smart investment to make. Okay, so we'll spend 10 gold pieces for a helmet. And this will net us 50 encumbrance. Now there's one rule, let's see, on the with the helmet. There's a rule from the Grey Harp edition of original D&D. It's the single volume, right? The single volume version of od&d. And I don't know, I remember this mechanic from that book. I don't know where else it comes from. I don't think it's in this game. Is it? Ooh, do we want to play with that or not? There's a mechanic that's basically like if you roll a 10 on a d10 or a 1 on a d10 when you take a hit, you can say that it hits your helmet instead of your body, and so it doesn't hurt you. Maybe, I don't think that's actually in this game, so maybe we don't do that. Yeah, let's say that in this version there's not a need or a use for the helmet. Yeah, we'll take that away for now then. Yeah, I guess if I'm gonna, I might make a series playing the single volume version later, and that'll be a difference. So yeah, we can keep it to the rules as written for now. That would bring us back up to 80 GP. And note that 80 GP of treasure is 80 encumbrance as well. This is going to all sum up to some total. And it's going to include the treasure and gold pieces that we're carrying with us. Okay, so now we have, let's see, you can see right here that there's an 80 coin weight that is called miscellaneous equipment. And this actually makes tracking all of this a little easier. So like ropes, spikes, bags, all of that good stuff. We can combine that all into one kind of group of equipment. That is only 80 encumbrance. So let's spend some gold in that category. We probably want, we've got money. We've actually got money, so we want rations. Okay, iron rations for dungeon expeditions and standard rations for just regular travel. My understanding is that a standard ration is more like fresh food that will work well on the surface, but if you went into a dark and dank dungeon for a long period of time, then those standard rations might mold and not keep well over the course of a week. Iron rations are less fresh, but they'll last longer in the dungeon. They're also more expensive to balance. So yeah, I guess I'll say that why don't we go ahead and purchase, like, how long does a standard ration last? I don't know. Well, why don't we say that we have like 4 weeks of standard rations? Let's spend 20 gold just so that we have plenty of food to kick off the campaign with. So let's spend 20 gold, drop down to 60, and let's say we have rations times 4 weeks. Okay, excellent. So that'll make things easy. Now we need light source. So we're gonna need some torches. Maybe I'll spend like 3 coins on 18 torches, or 4 coins on 24 torches. That's a lot. That might be a lot to carry. Yeah, maybe I'll spend, to make this kind of realistic, 2 coins on 12 torches sounds I don't exactly know how many torches we're going to end up needing, but we can kind of track this. Torches times 12. Okay. This is cool. This is cool. 10-foot pole. We definitely want a 10-foot pole and maybe a couple 50-foot stretches of rope. So let's do... Was that really only 1 coin for a 10-foot pole? Yeah. Excellent. So 58 to 55 gold pieces. We're going to have our 10-foot pole and 50 feet of rope times 2. Okay, we've got 2 of those ropes. Now, this all needs to be in a bag of some kind. So I think to be fancy, since we have the money for it, I'll do the leather backpack. And we'll have a sack on our side. So we've got a backpack on our back. We've got a sack on our side. That's going to be 5, 6, 7 gold. So we're down to, that's 48. So then leather backpack and sack of, we'll say large sack. And this all can count for our 80 encumbrance, which again makes this way easier. Okay, back to our purchasing area. Do we want to have a ranged weapon yet? I don't know. I might see how it goes with just melee for now. We might want to have the ability to hunt, actually. Let's see what our encumbrance is before doing that. We have torches. I think I want flasks of oil. They can kind of save you in certain situations. I'll spend, let's say, 6 gold pieces. We'll go down to 42 for, let's see, flask of oil times 3. This could maybe go up above with torches. Yeah. Yeah, this is going to be very useful. We want iron spikes. So in the dungeon, the idea is that the dungeon hates you and that the doors stick behind you. They open for the monsters, but they shut and stick for you, which is pretty interesting. I guess I'll spend, let's do 3 gold pieces on 36 iron spikes that can sit in my large sack. Okay, so 39 gold pieces, and that'll be iron spike times 36, which is quite a bit. And might be stretching the whole 80 encumbrance for all of this gear idea. Let's see if od&d has weight for iron spikes. It looks like... No, the spikes are explicitly called out as a part of miscellaneous equipment. Okay, which makes sense. We definitely need a water skin. Yeah, that's 1 gold coin for a water skin. So we'll spend 1, down to 38 gold pieces. We've got rations at the top, water skin. Okay. Yeah, I think that's actually 1 word that's going to bother me. Yeah, we don't need the spell check. Cool. Okay, this is looking pretty good. Is there anything else that we want for our character? I guess we should add up our encumbrance and see... We should just see if we want to spend the weight on a ranged weapon or not. We switched around... Ooh, we switched around some stats. Let's see. We became more dexterous. Our dexterity is 13. Are we actually going to get a bonus to our ranged? Yeah, dexterity above 12, fire any missile at +1 since we made that swap. So it could be useful for us to have a ranged weapon. Maybe the short bow will be light. So let's see. Do we have bow and arrows each are only 50 weight? Okay. That's cool. I like that. So let's go ahead and calculate our encumbrance so far. We've got 38 and 780. So 780. We've got just over 800, 818. So we could totally afford 50 more gold pieces worth of weight. Yeah, okay. So why don't we purchase a short bow? Yeah, short bow and 20 arrows. That's going to cost 30 gold pieces altogether. So that brings us down to 8 gold pieces. we'll say short bow, arrow. Do you want to track this here? I'll say 30 arrows. Is that right? Is that how many I bought? I think it's 20 arrows. Yeah, 20 arrows. Ooh, quiver of 20 arrows. 10, that's an extra 5 if we want the quiver, which we basically should have. So it's 20 arrows, they're in a quiver. Okay, it's going to cost us 5 more gold, so we're down to 3 GP. Wow. Okay, 3. This is going to go up to 750. 830, 833. Yeah, okay. I think this is good. Yeah, I mean, it has to be good because this is basically all of the money that we had to spend. We have spent it, but I'm pretty happy with everything that we bought. Yeah, this is looking pretty good. And so our movement with this encumbrance is going to be 9 inches, which is going to be not the fastest. There are going to be some things that outrun us, but my hope is that anything truly dangerous, of course, we're not counting like flyers, you know, like dragons and things like that. Anything in the dungeon that's like really dangerous, hopefully will have a 6-inch movement. And anything that is faster than us with like a 12-inch movement, hopefully those things will not be too difficult to kill. Let's hope that luck is on our side in that case. Okay, so now we just need a name for our character. So I was searching for names that could mean alone, and I found this really cool Polish name, Sambor, that means to fight alone, and I found that very fitting for a lonely knight. It sounds very epic and knightly. Okay, and why don't we change our title from veteran to apprentice, given that we're not quite level 1 yet. We are actually starting from level 0. Yeah, and with that, we have a Chainmail, an original Dungeons & Dragons player character. With that, I will call today's session. In today's session, we managed to create our solo player character, Sambor, the apprentice to the lonely knight, Shatha. Shatha will serve as our guardian and as our mentor in the early stages of the campaign as we explore the village of Nismele-Bane in the wider world of Westmoor in the next session. If you enjoyed today's session, don't forget to hit that like button and to subscribe for more solo role-playing content. And if that's not enough, you'll find even more solo role-playing actual plays in a written format on my blog at lonelydungeoneer.blog. Thanks again for watching. I'm the Lonely Dungeoneer, and this has been Session 4 of Let's Play Chainmail Solo. Until we meet again, happy delving, and fight on!